The untold story of Agnes Moorehead. Television icon Agnes Moorehead took in a foster child named Sean in 1952. She showered him with affection and attention, but when she passed away, a single line in her will would reveal a truth so twisted, it would shake everyone who knew her. A Star is Born. Agnes Robertson Moorehead entered this world on December 6, 1900. Her father, John Henderson Moorehead, was a Presbyterian clergyman, stern, traditional, devoted to his faith. Her mother, Mary, was only 17 years old when Agnes arrived, but she brought something special into their home, a performer's heart. Having once graced stages herself, Mary encouraged her children to dream, to imagine, to create. And young Agnes? She answered that call with everything she had. Picture this. A 3-year-old girl standing before her father's congregation, speaking the Lord's Prayer with a clarity that silenced the room. That was Agnes Moorehead's first performance. It wouldn't be her last. That moment planted 2 seeds that would grow throughout her entire life, her love of the stage, and her deep, unwavering spirituality. Though as we'll discover, both would cast shadows as dark as they were profound. When the family relocated to St. Louis, Missouri, Agnes's passion for acting intensified. Fortunately, she had an ally in her mother, who would greet her each morning with the question, "Who are you today, Agnes?" Agnes and her younger sister transformed their home into a theater. They'd arrive at the dinner table fully in character, much to their parents' delight. Her older sister, Ruth, became one of Agnes's greatest champions. But her father? He was the disciplinarian, and his methods of punishment were nothing short of brutal. Lessons carved in memory. Entertaining her father didn't grant Agnes immunity from his discipline. Far from it. When she misbehaved, her father had a particular ritual. He would place her atop a towering stack of encyclopedias and command her to memorize a song. As Agnes later recalled, "There I sat until I could recite it perfectly. It was wonderful memory training, and it made me think twice before I'd do something wrong again." Harsh as it was, her restrictive upbringing couldn't cage her ambitions. Agnes Moorehead pursued education with the same fervor she brought to acting. In 1923, she graduated from Muskingum College in New Concord, Ohio, with a major in biology. Yet even while buried in scientific studies, she found time for college theater productions. Later, she earned a master's degree in English and public speaking while teaching public school. Agnes wasn't just talented, she was relentlessly ambitious. But talent and ambition, as she would learn, weren't always enough. Luck still played its cruel game, and she would have to fight tooth and nail before fortune smiled upon her. The struggling artist. After graduation, Agnes threw herself into the world of professional performing. She auditioned for Broadway and won roles, though only as an understudy and chorus member, in productions like Scarlet Pages, All the King's Horses, and Soldiers and Women. Stage work came infrequently. Agnes lived the classic struggling artist's life, but poverty hit her with particular viciousness. At one point, she went 4 entire days without eating because she simply couldn't afford food. Her breakthrough arrived when a radio station offered her work. Sometimes she appeared on multiple programs in a single day, exhausting work, but as she said, it provided invaluable vocal training. Those were difficult years, no question, but they laid the foundation for everything that would follow. Marriage and meals tickets. In 1930, Agnes made a connection that would bind her life for 2 decades. She married fellow actor John Griffith Lee on June 5. She guarded the details of their relationship fiercely, keeping their private life away from prying eyes. But the information that did emerge? Shocking doesn't even begin to describe it. John never achieved Agnes's level of success as an actor, which forced him to seek other means of income. During their marriage, he registered to serve in World War II. But tension festered in their relationship, tension born from Agnes's rising star and John's inability to escape its shadow. His resentment grew toxic, and eventually, he delivered a devastating insult. He called her his meal ticket. Let that sink in for a moment. The woman he married, reduced to nothing more than a source of income. This wouldn't be the only time her career poisoned her personal relationships. Despite everything, they endured for 20 years before divorcing on June 11, 1952. Agnes's work kept her away from John for much of their marriage, though reports suggest she was always eager to return to him and their family farm. The year before their split, they'd fostered a young boy named Sean Lee. But as events would prove, Agnes had priorities that superseded motherhood. A fateful meeting. In the 1920s, a chance encounter with a young boy would alter the trajectory of Agnes's entire career. She first met Orson Welles when he was merely 7 years old. More than a decade later, in 1937, she became an early member of his independent theater company, the Mercury Players. This connection would prove invaluable. Her relationship with Orson continued throughout her career, and his work on his groundbreaking first film, Citizen Kane, brought Agnes into the cinematic spotlight. Citizen Kane announced Agnes Moorehead as a film actress of serious caliber. She was thrilled when Orson cast her in his second film, The Magnificent Ambersons, a performance that earned her both a New York Film Critics Award and an Oscar nomination. This was merely the beginning of her screen career, a scandalous second marriage. In 1954, 2 years after divorcing John Griffith Lee, Agnes married actor Robert Gist. But their union came with a scandalous twist that set Hollywood tongues wagging. Robert was 17 years her junior, and rumors of his infidelity circulated constantly throughout their industry. Predictably, this mismatch crumbled quickly. They remained married for only 4 years before divorcing in 1958. Agnes never pursued another significant long-term relationship after Robert, a decision potentially connected to persistent questions about her sexuality. The Conqueror's Curse. Agnes's career continued its upward trajectory through the 50s and 60s, fueled by her extraordinary work ethic. She starred in major productions, supported others in smaller roles, and appeared in countless films. But one film in particular would cast a shadow that reached far beyond its release. That film was called The Conqueror, and being on its set would have catastrophic consequences for everyone involved. Filming took place in Utah, in a location surrounded by covert government nuclear test sites. The consequences were nothing short of devastating. 220 cast and crew members participated in The Conqueror's production. Nearly half of them would eventually be diagnosed with some form of cancer during their lifetime. Agnes's mother believed to her dying day that working on this film is what ultimately destroyed her daughter. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Enter Endora. Agnes Moorehead caught her major television break in 1964 with the beloved series Bewitched. But her journey to that iconic role took an unconventional path. Initially, she rejected the part of Endora, the main character's insufferable mother who despised non-magical humans. She thought that was the end of the story. But then something surprising happened. Agnes ran into the show's lead, Elizabeth Montgomery, at a department store. Elizabeth approached her personally and asked if she would reconsider joining the cast. Even if Agnes might have lived to regret it, who could refuse such a personalized invitation? Agnes signed on for what she assumed would be a short-lived project. She figured the series wouldn't survive past one season. She couldn't have been more wrong. The series remained on the air for nearly a decade. Her character Endora launched her fully into the mainstream, with her name and face appearing in 8 out of every 12 episodes. But Agnes harbored some surprising feelings about her greatest success, the witch she never wanted to be. Agnes Moorehead thought very little of Bewitched. She despised playing a witch. She considered the writing trite, dismissing the scripts as hack work. Worse still, she felt the show's success trapped her irreparably in Endora's shadow. Once that first episode aired, there was no escape. Even after winning 6 Emmys, Agnes remained dissatisfied with her career being reduced to a single breakout role, especially since people began recognizing her exclusively as the witch. As she once said, "I've been in movies and played theater from coast to coast, so I was quite well known before Bewitched, and I don't want to be identified as the witch." Her stance on the series wouldn't soften until her final moments. Her relationships with her co-stars reflected this divide. With Elizabeth Montgomery, who played Endora's daughter, the relationship flourished. Agnes even admitted she was genuinely fond of her. But with Dick York, who played Endora's son-in-law, obvious tension crackled between them. He went so far as to call Agnes a tough old bird. And that wasn't the only contentious aspect of her professional conduct. Whispers and secrets. One element of Agnes's life that generated considerable commentary throughout her career was her sexuality. The studios she worked for maintained an immaculate image of her, depicting her as the ideal mother and wife. Yet despite their efforts, curiosity about her private life persisted. Eventually, rumors spread that she was a lesbian. And they didn't stop there. Paul Lynde, a fellow actor on Bewitched, seemed to possess extensive knowledge about Agnes's relationships. He made an utterly shocking claim, that Agnes and Debbie Reynolds were romantically involved. Debbie would later deny this allegation. But then came an interesting development that only deepened suspicions. Debbie's ex-husband, Eddie Fisher, announced he planned to write about Agnes and Debbie's friendship in his upcoming autobiography. Now, the argument stands that if the women's relationship was merely platonic, there would be nothing to fear. Yet Debbie threatened him with legal action should he expose any details of their relationship. That wasn't the only evidence supporting Agnes's supposed secret life. According to Paul Lynde, Agnes had maintained many intimate relationships with women early in her career, before she became more puritanical in her public behavior. Supposedly, the industry kept this secret carefully guarded. Not only that, but Paul alleged that during a fight with one of her husbands, after catching him cheating, Agnes shouted that if he could pursue relationships with women outside their marriage, so could she. Now, Paul's rumors are difficult to verify, as he was known for spreading gossip and unfounded claims. Yet strangely, many of his comments carry weight. When writer Bose Hadley questioned Agnes about her sexuality in 1973, she responded with evasion and coyness. Bose grouped her alongside several other actors who had participated in non-heterosexual relationships. Agnes's response? Yes, you'd love to put me in their excellent company, even if I don't belong in the same category. Sometimes, denying the truth can be even more revealing than a confession. The foster son she forgot. Remember Sean, her foster son? Midway through filming Bewitched, Sean graduated from high school. He left home immediately. His goal was simple: to experience life beyond his foster mother's smothering embrace and away from her suffocating rules. The world stretched before him, full of possibilities and ways of living he'd never been allowed to explore. Unfortunately, none of them included Agnes Moorehead. When he left, that was the last time she ever saw her foster son, even during one of the most significant moments of her life. The final act. By the time Bewitched wrapped, Agnes's health was deteriorating. But that didn't slow her down. She continued working furiously, releasing several films and embarking on a Broadway tour. She even ventured into voice acting, lending her voice to the goose in Charlotte's Web. She had no idea these would be among her final years in the acting world. 1973 marked the year Agnes's health took a devastating turn. At the time, she was performing in the Broadway adaptation of Gigi, playing Aunt Alicia. Musical theater is physically demanding, and she participated in numerous musical numbers. Then she became violently ill, so ill they had to replace her in the production. Agnes fought to work through the sickness, but this wasn't something willpower could defeat. That's when she received the diagnosis that would change everything. Agnes was suffering from uterine cancer that had metastasized to her lungs. Her case became yet another statistic in the rapidly growing number of the Conqueror cast and crew facing cancer diagnoses. According to her friend Debbie Reynolds, Agnes maintained she would survive, saying she left her fate in God's hands. After battling the disease in the privacy of the Mayo Clinic Hospital in Rochester, Minnesota, Agnes Moorehead succumbed to her cancer on April 30, 1974. She was 73 years old. Tragically, her mother outlived her. Agnes bequeathed all her jewelry and clothing to her. But the matters of her will extended far beyond that. Agnes left $25,000 to Muskingum College, requesting they fund at least one scholarship in her name. She split her manuscripts between this college and the University of Wisconsin. She left her family's farm and her extensive collection of Bibles and biblical materials to John Brown University. Despite all these careful appointments, one name was conspicuously absent from her will. The line that revealed everything. Agnes Moorehead hadn't seen her foster son since he left home after high school. When Agnes's friend Debbie Reynolds asked if she could search for Sean as Agnes fought her cancer, Agnes refused. She claimed anything related to Sean would only upset her. Because of this, he wasn't at the hospital when cancer claimed her life. And she left him absolutely nothing in her will. She stated explicitly that she had no children, living or deceased, nor any spouse. With those words, Sean's name passed into obscurity, along with his entire role in Agnes's life. Everything she owned went to the select few people around her and the organizations she'd named. Agnes's friends had many kind words for the actress after her passing. Though some acknowledge her occasionally difficult nature, particularly regarding her relationship with Sean, Lucille Ball observed, "She tried to be a good mother to her adopted son, but she could be too stifling as a parent." Despite this complicated legacy, Agnes continued to express a mentorship role to those around her until the end. Her early life as a teacher followed her throughout her career. According to her friend, producer Paul Gregory, she ran a school for many years out of her home, teaching drama. Once a teacher, always a teacher. Forever Endora, she will forever be known as Endora from the beloved series Bewitched, regardless of how she felt about being identified as a witch. That role has immortalized her entire filmography and introduced her name to new generations of audiences. Though she has been lost, she has not been forgotten. The woman who spoke the Lord's Prayer at age 3, who survived on nothing during her struggling years, who worked with Orson Welles and won countless accolades, she also fostered a child and then erased him from her life so completely that even her will denied his existence. That's the twisted truth that Agnes Moorehead took with her to her grave. Sometimes the roles we play off stage are far more complicated than anything written in a script.